Okay, guys, so we're going to start on equation solving. And I know you've learned this in the past, right? So what I'm showing you might be a bit different. It's not quite traditional, but you know what? I'm trying to find a newest way or whatever easiest way for you to remember and be able to solve any equation effectively. I'm talking any equation. If I throw you anything, you should be able to solve it and be able to recognize it and get the correct answers, okay? So here is our equation solving lessons. Okay? For equation solvings, there are 4 typical operations that you're going to be dealing with pretty much regularly for the next couple of lessons anyway. And you will see, first of all, it's either addition or subtraction. And the other set will be either multiplying or dividing. Okay? I'm going to have to isolate them though. And you will understand why I have to isolate these two in a minute. But for the time being, every time there's something called, if you're adding or subtracting, it's always involving a whole term. Now, if you don't recall what a term is, we'll take a minute to review that. And every time you deal with multiplication or division, it involves the coefficient only. There you go. This is the basic of equation solving. This is the only thing that you need to remember out of the whole thing. Whole term, I add or I subtract. Coefficient only, I multiply or I divide. And pretty soon, I can actually cut division out of the picture completely, and all you have to do is just multiply the whole time you have to. It's up to you. Okay? So what is it? What's the deal with the whole term and the coefficient? We've talked about this before. For instance, how many terms do I have here? 3 terms. And what separates our terms? Whole term, the plus or the minus, right? So you can quickly see here that we have 3 terms. Here's our first term, second term, third term. The term, of course, by definition could be just a number by itself or a combination of number and variables or variables, right? Could be. Now, tell me, look at the 2x term. Where's my coefficient? What is the definition of a coefficient? The number in front of the variable. Has to have a variable, and a number in front of it is your coefficient, correct? So right here, would you say that the coefficient is your 2?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Look at that. Coefficient. There, just like that. And what's the coefficient here?
7.
The 7. Very good. So that's also my coefficient. And look at this 6 right here. Do we have a coefficient?
Yes. No.
We don't. Who said yes? Remember, the coefficient has to be in front of what? The variable. Do we have a variable here?
No.
We don't. So that's not a coefficient, but we call that a what? Do you know? It's a term, but what is the name for that term if there's no variable? Huh? Well, it's a term, but here we still won't give you to right now. It's called a constant term. It's not a coefficient, but it's a constant. Okay. Are we absolutely clear on this? On how to identify what is a term and what is a coefficient? Notice that a coefficient is part of the term, not the whole thing. When I'm saying the whole term, I'm taking the whole thing, which is 2x, which is 7y. In this case, since the term itself is just a number, I just take the whole number with it. Okay? But when I say I take the coefficient only, then this is just a 2. This is just a 7. Are we clear on that? We're good, right? And is there a coefficient here again? No, we don't have a coefficient. Good. Now you understand the basic behind terms and coefficient. We can officially start on our equation solving adventure. Okay? First of all, the word equation means you need to have an equal sign. And equal signs mean whatever on the left-hand side will have to equals to the right-hand side. I do not ever want you to think that, oh wait, the left-hand side has to have a variable and the right-hand side is the solution. Not the case. What you got to understand is an equation means the left has to equal to the right. If I say this is 3 plus 5 and over here I say 4, what is this number here to make it balanced?
4.
You see what I'm saying? That's what you're really trying to find. A value to make your equation balanced. Is that clear so far? So now, if I actually give you an actual equation that looks something like this, for instance, you're literally trying to find out, okay, what do I need to place over here so that it will balance with the -2? That's your question. And we have a way to solve for it. Okay? So here's the first rule of thumb that you need to remember. Our goal, anyway, to solve any equation is to look at the variable, because the variable represents the what? What's the variable? What does it represent? The variable of the unknown, right? The unknown number. And we have to find the unknown number. To find it, we have to, here's the thing that you need to remember, isolate the variable. Do you know what this term means? What does it mean to isolate? Yes.
Take everything out of the side of the variable.
Very good. To take everything out on that same side, except for the variable. So that means you are leaving it by itself on one side of the equal sign. So notice right now, we're looking at the problem, is x. I'm going to go and circle it because I want you to understand that this is what I want to focus on. I want it to stay. I don't want it to go anywhere. But something else is bothering it right now, and I want to get rid of it. And that something is the +5, right? +5. How do I get rid of the +5? Now you go back to the same questions again. Is that 5 a term or a coefficient? A term. Then you go back to a rule right here. If it's a whole term, how do I get rid of it? You only have two choices. You see it? You basically eliminate any other option but just two options. Plus or minus. How do I get rid of a +5? Okay, let's say you are just being wild, like, I'm a rebel. I'm just going to try +5 again to see if I can actually get rid of 5. I'm going to hold plus it. And then you're going to go, 5 plus 5 is 0? I wonder. Whoa, no, it doesn't work. So now that you've tried plus, then the only option left is a minus. So of course you would change your way, and you say, okay, I'm going to go in -5. Will 5 minus 5 equal to nothing? Yes. Nothing means I just got rid of it. Gone. There you have it. And of course, -2 minus 5. What will that give you? -7. And guess what? Our answer is right here, but to be sure that this is correct, you would take that and plug it back to our x to see if it's going to work out. -7 plus 5? Will that give you -2? Yes. Check. And that is your correct answer. Huh? Of course, yes. But I'm just wanting to make sure you understand this clearly, so when we get to a harder problem, it will be very simple for you to solve. Okay, so check this next one out. Pretend you have this right now. Look at that problem. So how do we deal with this when we have double signs? What do I mean by double signs? Sign sitting next to another sign, back to back. How do I deal with that? Yes? Okay, so you learned this in the past, that when you have two of the negatives sitting next to each other, I call this sign absorptions, really. It's two signs into one, two negative forms a positive, and of course two opposite sign, positive, negative forms a. I know, by memory, right? Okay, fine. Just keep that for now. So these two signs will absorb into a plus. And always, remember to do that. You have to convert two signs into one before you start solving. I don't want you to ever get confused. So if this happened to be a plus and minus, the two signs will absorb into a negative, a minus sign. Very good. Okay, so now, look at this. What are we solving for? For x. So I'm going to go and circle that and say, I'm going to make sure this stays where it is. What do I need to get rid of? Is that a whole term or the coefficient?
Whole term.
The whole term. So now you know that you only have two options, plus and minus. Okay, who thinks it's going to be minus? Raise your hand. No one? Good, because if you minus -5, that's going to give you -10. Won't work. But if you plus it, what will happen on the left-hand side? It's going to give 0. Good, that's your goal, to get rid of it. Here's x. On the right-hand side, however, you have to deal with fractions. You have -2/3 plus 5. What is your common denominator here? 3. So here's my LCD. This is already the same. I do not need to do anything with that. This, however, I need to multiply by what?
3.
By 3. So that's going to turn up to 15. What is negative 2 plus 15? 13. 13 over 3. And that is the final answer. And obviously, like I said, don't forget, if you want to make sure this is correct, I would definitely plug this right back into here to make sure it's correct. Okay, any questions so far on how to solve this? We're good, right? Okay. Take a look at this next one right here. So we're crossing over to another realm. Okay, we've been seeing adding and subtracting. So when am I going to start using multiplying and dividing? Well, here it is. Watch this. Imagine you have the following problem. Can anyone tell me right now how many terms do you have on the left-hand side and how many terms do you have on the right-hand side?
2.
One term. One whole term, huh? This is also another term. But the difference is, on the left-hand side, that term happens to have a what? A coefficient as well. Right? 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 Very good. Okay, now watch. We are solving for what? X. So I'm going to go circle that and say, I'm going to keep this there. But notice the difference this time around. This is a term. My goal is to get rid of negative 2. But is negative 2 a term or a coefficient? You see it? You answer yourself that this is a coefficient. If that's a coefficient, are we allowed to add or subtract? No. We're down to just this. Multiplying or dividing. See it? So, how do I get rid of negative 2? Yes?
Divided by 2.
You divide by negative 2. Very good. Has to be, you want to get rid of negative 2, you have to divide by the same number. Right? Divide by negative 2.
Wouldn't it be 1?
X equals 2. But look, you're asking, wait, I still get 1 back, but isn't 1 x? There, you technically got rid of the code, in a sense. Okay? So 12 minus 2 is? 12 divided by negative 2? Negative 6. Test it to see if it works. Negative 6 into here. Negative 6 times negative 2. Positive 12. So it works, right? So what am I talking about when I say, well, there's yet another way to do this, and that it will work every single time. I want you to get to know your friend, your reciprocal friend. Okay? And then what do I mean by that? Same problem. Watch what happens. Every time you use your reciprocal friend in the problem, you will never ever use division ever again. You only use multiplications to get rid of your coefficient. So what do I mean by that? Watch. You see this right here? You still want to get rid of that, right? That's part of the term or just a coefficient. You go here and say, I have two options, multiply and dividing. I hate dividing. So how do I just keep on multiplying the whole time? Well, find the reciprocal of that. What is the reciprocal of negative 2?
2.
Negative 1/2. Who said 2? That's the opposite, not reciprocal. Okay? The reciprocal means you've got to flip your numerator and your denominator. I'm not switching the sign. The sign stays the same. But look, I got my reciprocal over here, and as you know, anytime you do something on one side of the equation, you got to repeat it and do the same thing on the other side. Is that correct? That's what an equation is all about balancing. So in this case, if you are going to be multiplying the reciprocal to the left-hand side, you are doing this to the same side as well, to the right-hand side. So negative 1/2 times negative 2 on this side will cancel. Over here, 12 times negative 1/2 is negative 6. Same answer. Yes? Where did I get the 1/2, negative 1/2 from? What is the reciprocal of negative 2? Is it negative 2? Negative 2 over 1, and you flip it as negative 1/2? The reciprocal, right? The reciprocal of this is negative 1/2, isn't it? That's what I'm doing. Finding the reciprocal is very important. Right, Gary? Okay, look at this next one right here. And why I have to introduce your, reciprocal as your friend. Because of a problem like this. Look at that one right there. What are we solving for? X. What do we need to get rid of? The coefficient or the entire term? Just the coefficient. But then I already introduced you your reciprocal friend, right? So now every time you see it, all you have to do is multiply, multiply, multiply. to get rid of the coefficient. So coefficient, you want to get rid of it, multiply by its reciprocal. What is the reciprocal of negative 3/4? Negative 4 over 3. Watch what happens. Negative 4. How's that going to change the sign? A negative times a negative is a positive. Oh, you don't change the sign. Reciprocal doesn't mean you change the sign. That's the opposite. Opposite of 5 is negative 5. Opposite of the negative 2 is a positive 2. Reciprocal simply means whatever the number you had before, flip the numerator and denominator. That's what it means. Okay, so be very careful with that. Now, if I multiply the left-hand side with negative 4 to the, over 3, what do I do with the right-hand side? You do the same thing. Negative 4 over 3. Notice this is already gone. On the right-hand side now, I can just go ahead and multiply. Negative 8 over 21. And that's your answer. You see how quickly you can get to the answer? Look at that trick. Is that nice? Yeah. I mean, who was afraid of dealing with fractions before? Now we have a way to deal with it, right? Reciprocal is your friend. Reciprocal times, done. You just have to multiply. And this is how we get rid of our coefficient. Just times it by the reciprocal both sides. You're done. Are we clear on that? Okay. Let's test out your knowledge. See how capable you are handling a more challenging problem. Look at this one. Okay. Look at this one right here. How many terms do I have on the left-hand side? 2. 2 terms. I have one term on the right-hand side. What am I solving for? What is it that I need to isolate? The x. There it is. I need to isolate my x, and I need to get rid of what? The negative 4 and the 2. The negative 4 is a what? It's called what? A coefficient, and the 2 is called a whole term. So here's your dilemma. Why? What is it that I need to get rid of first? Do I need to get rid of the negative 4 or the 2? Okay. Some said 2, some said negative 4, right? Do we have an agreement on this? So, well, this is how I agree on it. You can either remember to do hand this backwards when you solve it. I think it's kind of complicated for a lot of you. So I just figure if you have something in real life to remember, you probably stick with it better. Just think of it this way. I'm sorry for saying this, but you're a guy, cool guy, you know. You have yeah, you know, right? You have a girlfriend who lives right next door to you. Okay. And then you also happen to have another girlfriend who you met online. Okay. So this is getting bad, right? This is getting bad. Okay. All right. So one day, both of your girlfriends found out that you've been cheated on. Okay. And so you have to fix the problem somehow. And so here's the ultimatum. You have to get rid of one. Okay, tell me, honestly, which one is the easiest one to cut tie from? Why?
Because
Never seen her. She's probably lived like far away from you, right? Is that true? And the one that's closest to you is probably the hardest one to get rid of, right? Because she's on your tail every day. So, I hope you remember that story. I know it sounds really bad, but then again, it helps you with math. Watch this. Here is your girlfriend next door. Here's your long-distance girlfriend. See that? Since the negative 4 is the closest to you, you have to keep it close. Will be the last thing you cut tie. So 2 is the long-distance girlfriend. It's the first thing to go, you know? So that's the same way. So math, I have to get rid of 2 first. How do I get rid of 2? Subtract it. Very good, because this is the whole term. Whole term means you add or subtract, so you minus it over. You end up with negative 4x equals to 8 minus 2 is? 6. Very good. Okay, now here's the part where, you know, you get brokenhearted, and, you know, now is the time where your closest girlfriend tell you that, you know what, it doesn't work for us anymore. You're a cheater, once a cheater, always a cheater. Goodbye. You know? So you tear up that relationship. Here it is. How do you get rid of her once and for all?
Just kidding.
Oh, I know, but
Difficult.
you're not getting rid of the whole thing. You're not dumping yourself too. You're breaking it up. But how do I break a piece of it? Reciprocal. Very good. It makes sense. Notice it. You know how you can bug someone just doing everything opposite or reciprocal of it. Like if she loves to go to the movies, you say no, I don't like it. If she loves to go shopping, you say no, I'd rather stay home and watch movies. All right. Anyway, reciprocal is your friend in this case. This is how you cut tie to -4. And so how do you cut tie by -4? What do you multiply by? -1/4. -1/4. So I end up with, this is gone, x is?
-3/2.
Okay, first it's -6/4, and then you reduce it to -3/2. Any questions on that? Yes?
How did you get -6/4?
Because this is -6/1. You multiply right across. Right? When you multiply fraction, you multiply top to top, bottom to bottom. Right? And then we reduce it in the end. Or you can do something like this. Let me show you. Here's 6/1. Here's -1/4. Watch what happens. Excuse me. Here's the 6 and 4. Can you divide both by 2? So this is 3 and this is 2. 3 times -1 is 3. 1 times 2, 2. You can also do it that way. Okay. So that's the end of our story. Would you like that? Okay. But that's it. This is all I have to show you for equation solving. Any questions on our little equation solving adventure?
I don't like this.
All right. We are officially done.